but also determined about it.
Great, thank you very much. Rob Roberts, you had a question.
Thank you, Chair. Brother, Mr. Harry, it's always a matter of great enjoyment for us all when the interviewer is on the other side of the desk. We'll be gentle, it's okay. I appreciate your time. What do you think should be the role of public service broadcasting in Wales in the modern era?
I think public service broadcasting is basically filling the gaps where the market cannot kind of deliver what is needed. So in a world where some people think that Netflix offers them all they need, or the other streaming services as well, somebody has got to produce programs that are not going to work on a global stage, because people want to know about Pontypridd or about Cardiff or about Wales or about the UK. And often if you are, the joy of something like Netflix is that you can have a story about a sweaty bunch of nasty blokes in Colombia speaking a language that most people in the UK don't speak, and yet, Narcos can become a global hit because it touches on universal truths. And I'm all in favour of getting the universal from the specific, but you also need the specific from the universal. So we need the examples of things like Bang, filmed in Port Talbot, like Un Bore Mercher, that some of you will know as Keeping Faith, that are rooted literally in the landscape of Wales, that have recognisable Welsh characters and Welsh characteristics, and that are filmed in Wales, creating jobs and opportunities in Wales. So the public service extends to filling the gap so that people see the world that they know intimately on telly and on the radio, hear it on the radio, not just go universal and blanket at all times.
Super specifically then, would that be a different answer if I'd have asked the question, what should be the role of public service broadcasting in the 21st century, without me saying in Wales? Would it have been a different answer generally?
I think there's an added ingredient in Wales because the market is going to struggle to cater for the Welsh language, which is small but precious. I had the joy of interviewing you in your native Welsh when I had this.
I fumbled my way through it.
And it's important. It may be small, and one of the problems I had with the phrase "the many, not the few" is where in the phrase with that utilitarian kind of bent is there a recognition of the preciousness of 500,000 people who speak this ancient language that means an awful lot to so many of us. And so you need specific provisions there to ensure that language does get a chance to survive and thrive and to move into the modern age and to be on the platforms where confident young Welsh-speaking people, often living outside of Wales, are keen to encounter it. So you need an infrastructure, you need an ecosystem that will support that.
Feel like public service broadcasters in Wales are receiving adequate funding to deliver the things that they need?
They'll probably hate me for saying this, but one of the things that's depressing is how almost every conversation and various secretaries of state have complained to me that when they meet people from the world of television, they think, oh, this is going to be fun today. They're going to talk about the latest stars that are filming, and maybe they'll even invite me on set. Matt Hancock back then was very keen to go on set. He's now fulfilled his ambition many times over. But he said all they ever want to talk about is adequate funding. And even when it's been secured, as it has recently by the last but two governments, I think, by the Conservative government, there is a lot of money for Welsh language programming. There's more than £100 million a year when you add the programmes that are produced for free by the BBC for S4X. So I don't think necessarily it's a matter of funding. And I do think, and I thought this for a long time, it's better to produce less and have something that a lot of people will get out of the mix than to actually sustain a linear channel where you've got Welsh from dawn to dusk, but audiences that are tiny, and then great programmes that are overlooked because they're not marketed properly. And so, as so often in other walks of life, I think sometimes a little less is a lot more. Not that I'm advocating cut in funding, but I think it's pretty good. Non-Welsh speakers in Wales, I think, can feel vaguely cheated sometimes, that there's not enough that reflects their world. Most of them are very proud of the Welsh language and have ownership of it, but there's a lot more money into Welsh language programmes in Wales than there are to English language programmes that are rooted in Wales. And even though Wales has become a significant production centre for Doctor Who, His Dark Materials and other network programmes, there's nothing particularly Welsh about Doctor Who or His Dark Materials that says, thank God that was produced in Cardiff, not anywhere else in the world. So it's showing the sort of gritty reality of life in Wales, and S4C actually has contributed more to that probably than so-called network broadcasters.
Okay. Moving slightly onto a different topic, then you worked in Downing Street. I was going to say for the previous Prime Minister, but for the previous Prime Minister now. When you were there, obviously it was government policy to privatise Channel 4. As far as you're aware now, what do you feel is the future of that policy? And what do you think might its impact be on Wales?
I'm not sure it's for me to get into DCMS strategy on Channel 4 outside of Wales for the purposes of this. You know, I'll stay out of it. I was aware of the arguments on both sides and the toing and the froing. I think for Wales, a few decades ago, it would have had a lot of impact. But now, even though there could be a knock-on effect on the sort of work that some companies in Wales sell to Channel 4 outside of Wales, I think the direct impact is less significant.
The final question, very briefly from me, Chair, is in terms of news coverage as a public service, have you always felt that public service broadcasting in Wales has reported the news in an entirely neutral and impartial way, or has there been a tendency towards one political outlook than another?
I struggle to see what you're getting at there. I do, and I think I said this when I was proud to take on the role as presenter of Y Byd yn Ei Le, that was trying to do things slightly differently. Journalism in Wales could be a lot more muscular than it is, a lot more probing. It should make politicians in Cardiff feel uncomfortable. You know, I've just been at the receiving end of, you know, arguably the most brutal, you know, press and media in the world here in London, but, you know, it's right. And the Prime Minister that I served has always been very, very clear that, you know, he wants a robust press, because a strong, robust, independent press that's prepared to kick you and hold you to account is part of what is a driver in our democracy to taking better decisions. I'm not sure that the press and the media in Cardiff and across Wales is sufficiently robust and questioning in holding the administration in Cardiff to account as they should, or nor remotely as tough as the press and media are here holding this Conservative government to account.
Thanks, Chair.
Before I bring in Ben Lake, can I just follow up by asking the question why then? Why do you think that they're less robust?
In London, there's a strong newspaper section, and there are, you know, very distinguished editors, but they tend to, you know, not be shy about their views and not be shy about putting forward the views of the world. And we don't have much of an independent press in Wales. I think, you know, Wales Online are heroically doing their best. There are still some local papers. There are Welsh publications, Golwg, the whole world heard about when I got my job in number 10. Barn is an excellent newspaper, magazine without naming all of them. They do their best, but there isn't a Spectator for a start. There isn't a Telegraph. There isn't a Mail. There isn't any of that to sort of condition the landscape. And then what you do have is a very, very dominant public service media presence, which is now really well resourced. I was part of a tiny team covering Wales in this Parliament before power was devolved, and there was 4 or 5 of us. There's now vast numbers of people covering the Welsh Senedd in Cardiff, as there should be, but there seems to be, dare I say, a sort of slightly beige, soggy kind of consensus about it. How often do you sort of hear a challenge that 1 in 5 people in Wales are on NHS waiting lists, that, you know, educational standards were so bad at one point they stopped measuring them, that there was 1 FTSE 100 in Wales when power was devolved, and there's still 1 FTSE 100 in Wales. The child poverty was meant to be the top priority for a Labour-led administration, and years down the line, Mark Drakeford had to admit, on the Y Byd yn Ei Le, that it remains a shocking sort of indictment of, poor administration in Cardiff. So I think a robust press that was a little less cosy, a little harder hitting, dare I say, as they're happy to be about a Conservative government in London, a little bit of that feistiness that they bring to the debate about Westminster politics applied to Cardiff would do everyone a world of good.
Very good. I think, Virginia, did you have a supplementary quickly? Very brief, then, please.
Yeah, thank you.